Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Built to Exit with me, your humble host, Jason Sisneros. And today we're going to have a great conversation with, as you've noticed through the interviews, these are the people that I interview are people that I know, that I have a long-standing relationship with, and that we've developed over a decade or more of relationship. We have learned a lot about each other and stayed in touch and continued to do business, because I think that's something that's getting lost out in the marketplace these days is the time component. Everybody's like AI this and AI that and speed and all of these different things in business. We talk about principles, and those principles will stay steady. Yes, technology will change. Yes, product will change. Yes, user patterns will change. But the underlying concept of principles in ethical capitalism, I don't think they're ever going to change. Right. I don't think they're ever going to change. And so relationship, as you're starting to see through my interviews, is extremely important to me. It's one of those things that you can determine when you're doing due diligence about businesses that you're doing business with. It's one of those due diligence pieces that you should remember to ask, right? We talk a lot about go to LinkedIn and go down to the recommendations and check their recommendations out and do your due diligence so that you don't get screwed over or whatever it is. The age of someone's relationships should matter to you greatly in your due diligence time frame. How long have they kept customers? How long have they known these people? Have they spoken of them or with them in public? This is a great big indicator for you. I think you're starting to notice that from the interviews that I do. I'm very selective. I have access to some, to some big names, and I'm more interested in hearing the stories of one of the gentlemen that you're about to meet today, Kirk Chug. And he happens to be a dear friend of mine. He's also, a lot of you see me out in public and doing the different things and the suits that I wear. He is the gentleman that I go to, and I've had that long-standing relationship with him. So without further ado, let me bring on the well dressed Kirk Chug. Welcome to the show, brother.
Hi, Jason. Thanks for having me today.
It's my pleasure. How long have we known each other?
I was trying to think today who introduced us or what paths crossed to bring us into each other's lives. And we've known each other long enough that I'm not even sure what that connection was, whether it was an introduction from one of my clients or it seems like we've known each other for a really long time.
It does. It does. Well, you were showing me, I think you sent me a picture the other day of the first suit that I ordered from you, and that's
I
been a minute.
I remember that, because I was, like, newer in business and I was, like, getting into this higher end stuff. I kinda start where everybody starts, and then you get a little bit more confidence, and you get a little bit better network, and I started to sell this, like, finer product, and I had made a couple of suits for you,
Mhm.
and it was the day that I was moving.
Yes.
And we were moving from, like, the home we'd been in for 10 years. We were moving to our next home, and it was literally the day we were moving boxes, and you needed the suits for an event,
Yep.
and I looked at my wife in the eyes and I said, "I have to go deliver these suits in Salt Lake City, and I will be home as soon as I can." And she looked at me like, "You're crazy. We're moving today."
Mhm.
And so I saw that picture in a memory that popped up the other day of you with your skull liner on the inside of a black pinstripe suit. And I thought, that was the day that hopefully I earned my stripes a little bit with Jason. I
Yeah.
don't know that you even knew that was
No,
what
I
was going
did. I
on
knew
in my
you were
life
moving.
that
I
day.
I knew all of that, and I had a timeline, and I was literally leaving that evening, I believe, to
Yeah.
go do an event, and I really appreciated it. But that's part and parcel of who you are and how I've gotten to know you over the years. It's been at least a decade.
Yeah.
But I think
Yeah. It has.
there's this lots of really cool angles and things that I kind of want to talk to you about today. But why don't you tell us a little bit, because my audience understands built to exit is we're built literally our tagline is that you want there's three types of exits in the world, right? And one is dictated where your exit your business you don't know enough about how to sell the business, and so somebody else is dictating the price, timing, and terms for you.
Mhm.
The other one, which 95% of companies have, which is called an involuntary exit, and that's where you just run out of cash and all of a sudden you're out of business, right? I had three of
Yeah.
those. I also had a dictated exit, and that's when I really got it, really interested in the idea that this whole concept of your custom tailored stuff popped into my mind. You came to my mind when we were trying to put this together. I was like, I looked at, okay, I didn't like the involuntary exit. I didn't like the dictated exit. I don't like people having any, I don't like people bossing me around or pushing me around. I don't like being ignorant on subjects. And so I was like, you know what? I know the buyer of these businesses, they know more than me. And so what I'm going to do is go find out what they want and how they look at buying a business. And I'm going to custom tailor my own businesses to exactly their specifications. So it's a no brainer. And I get my price, I get my timing, I get my terms, and we have a smooth project or product.
Yep.
And when you and I were talking at the beginning of the show before we popped on here, we were talking about that custom tailored side and the trust that is put in you and where you had to go through a process of being like everybody else until you figured out, you know what, it's better for me to have some customers that do business with me consistently over a period of time that are trustworthy people. You have a project called the Gentleman's Project that I've been on your podcast.
Yeah.
And I think that the custom tailor side of what you do. Talk to me a little bit about your brand is Haberdasher. I'm just telling everybody out
Mm.
there right now, if you want to call him and ask him for a sport jacket, this is not the right guy. If you want to not be AI and you want to actually look like you look and you want to look good when you get in public, this is the guy that you're going to call. And you're going to have to mention me because you got to have a referral to, he's like the Hitch
Yep.
of suits. Right? But talk a little bit
Yeah.
about that. Talk about your brand Haberdasher, right? And tell us a little bit about why you're so passionate, why the custom tailoring, why the client base that you have landed on.
Well, when I started, I didn't think I'm home based out of Utah, and I left like a menswear store where we were selling department store quality things,
Mhm.
and I left to start a custom tailoring business. And the first time I sold an $800 suit, I about flipped.
Mm.
I thought, there's $800 for a suit in Utah. This is crazy. And that just goes to show you that reality is seen through the perception of the lens that you are currently looking through.
Mm.
Because I don't sell anything that's $800 anymore.
Right.
That's not even on my
I can't
menu.
even get you on the phone for $800.
I'll send the invoice for the podcast. No, um, and uh, and so what I did was exactly what you just said, Jason. I started to listen to what my customers were asking for because I was thinking, you know what I'll do? I'll take a this was 12, 13 years ago, and at the time in Utah, there was nobody out doing what I was doing.
Mhm.
A mobile tailor that would come to your home, look at your wardrobe, see what you have, create a custom capsule for you that's going to work for what you're doing, the people that you're in front of, and create a brand for you. And I was the only one doing it that was an independent. We had some Tom James guys that would come in from out of state every once in a while, and they had their customer base, but I was the only one. And I thought, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to start listening to what they want.
Mm.
And so they were asking for things that I wasn't providing yet. And they were asking, well, is this as good as what I'm getting from blank, off the rack? And I was getting compared to Brioni and, the things that are like the super high end off the rack stuff. And I said, I have got to get to the point where I can offer a custom garment as good as that or better. And I have to do it so that this guy doesn't ever have to go shopping again on a Saturday. He's I tell you all the time, I don't sell suits, I sell Saturdays.
Right.
Uh, I don't want, like, you called me the other day and you said, "Brother, I need a black suit." That's it. Like, it could be a phone call, it can be a text, and what you do for a living and the people that you help and your price tag is worth a whole lot more than going shopping for a suit, and wasting an entire weekend full of frustration not trying to, I mean, you're not an off the rack guy. You're not
Right.
gonna find something that fits anyway. So what I did was I just started to listen to what they wanted. Same as when, you're building a business, you need to build the business so that it's uh, attractive to a buyer
Mhm.
and knowing what they want. So I think that the number one takeaway for business people or people that are building businesses is build something that people want to buy. My dad used to tell me that all the time. He's like, never buy a car you can't sell.
Mm.
And
Yeah.
he's always done well, with buying and selling hot rods and collectible cars, muscle cars. Like, if it is so niche that there's not a buyer for it, then you got to come back a little bit.
Yeah.
You find something that's unique, but also make sure that there's somebody out there that's going to buy it, which I think is, your expertise.
Well, and again, just for the people that are watching, the great lesson out of all of this is to listen to your customer. We talk about all the time at B2X and on the podcast about this concept of falling in love with the outcome of your ideal customer, right? And I know, okay, my black shirts are getting a little worn out. I just call you up, right? And I say, hey, every once in a while, you tell me, well, we gotta measure you again, Jason. It's been a minute.
You keep trimming down.
Yeah. Well, and it's interesting because, you go, okay, well, whatever size I happen to be, I mean, I've just been in, I don't know, everybody gets a little fluffy and everybody gets a little skinny. Like, that's kind of how I look at it, right? You're in different shapes at different times. And so when I am thinking about it, I had one time when I needed this short-term deal that I was going to go get. I think they were seersucker suits, and it was like I
Oh, it was
just
for the
got,
Derby.
yeah, for the
It was for
Derby.
the Derby.
And
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, and I call you and you're like, there's no way we're going to be able to get that done in time. And so then I go to a local place because I'm in South Carolina. There's seersucker suits everywhere,
Right.
but there's no way they're going to fit me custom, right? I mean, off the rack, they're not going to fit me. So then I'm like, all right, well, I need you to tailor this and I'll pay you a little bit of extra money. And oh my God, like they're fine, for seersucker and going to the Kentucky Derby and doing the stuff that I did. But as I was wearing them, I'm like, this is not Kirk Chug. This is not Kirk Chug. It's not his talent. It's not his care. It's not his knowledge base. It's not, and it just made it, you're already valuable to me as a human being, but you're incredibly valuable to me as a resource because there is a brand that is Jason Cisneros. And how you started, you're the one that taught me, as far as what you wear and those kind of things have something really big to do with that. And so, where did you learn and what was your best lesson around falling in love with the outcome of your customer? Like, what was your biggest number one, like your aha moment? Like, oh, now I get it.
I will tell you, it just happened to me,
Mm,
right? Like 20 minutes ago.
okay.
I had a delivery for a guy who is, uh, he's in the C-suite of a company that's a multinational company. There's some things going on in the company. He's being interviewed as the CEO, the next CEO. They're
Mm,
opening interviews. I just put him in his very first hand tailored suit,
mm,
and he put it on, and he was like a kid the day before you go, Christmas shopping or you go back to school shopping, and you
mhm.
say, "Mom, can I wear this out of the store?
Yeah.
Can I wear my shoes? Can I put my old shoes in the box and wear my new Nike Airs home?"
Right.
Um, he literally, like, he's in the next room right now, and he is wearing the suit that he just got on a conference call, and he feels like the next CEO.
Mm,
And you can see the change in demeanor of someone who looks as good as they feel inside.
yeah.
And I love, my suits make you look as good as you are.
Yeah.
I can't make you the next CEO, but I
Mm.
can make sure that you look like one.
Right.
And you can feel like one if what I do for you matches, your skill set and your qualifications. Uh, if you're sitting down in a jersey, you know, zip up or a hoodie or something, and you're interviewing for a job, you're obviously you don't feel like the next CEO.
Yeah.
So like that literally just happened, and that is the payday for me. Sometimes I forget that I also get paid to do what I do,
Yeah.
because that is like, oh, like there's money in my bank account too. But when I see that outcome for my customer is the elevation of their own personal self-worth, and they see their own value for who they are, um, just based on how they feel, based on how they get dressed, that they got dressed that morning on purpose, that they have what works for them, and that they can focus on what they do best, because they don't have to worry about whether this fits or whether this is appropriate for me to wear on a podcast or in an interview. We've already talked about that. We've already made the effort to make sure that that's off the table. You don't have to worry about that anymore. Focus on what you do best, your skill sets, the things that are going to make you valuable to the company. Those are the things that you should be focusing on, not is my tie too short?
Yeah. I love it. And another payoff is when Emily sees me in the new suits that you make me, the look on her face. It's every dollar. She's like, "Oh my God." Like literally I have to wipe the drool off of her mouth every once in a while. But Hi, my name is Jason Sisneros, founder and chairman of Built to Exit, a world-class business consulting firm that's helped hundreds of clients and thousands of business owners fix, scale, and successfully master their companies. Let me ask you a question. Are you serious about changing the direction of your business, but you don't have the funds to bring in a high-level consulting team? Well, then keep watching. We created the Built to Exit system specifically for entrepreneurs like you. Whether you're a startup trying to avoid costly mistakes or a seasoned owner stuck in a plateau or a downturn, this do-it-yourself system is your answer. Now, this course isn't easy. It's not a gimmick. It's not sugar-coated motivational feel-good fest if you know me at all. It's a graduate level masterclass built from decades of business ownership, consulting, and real-world results. If you're willing to do the work and follow the blueprint we use with companies that pay us 5 and 6 figures, you will finally have a system that gives you time freedom, financial control, and a clear path to a successful exit. So if you're serious about building a business that works with or without you, go to www.b2xsystem.com right now, because everybody exits. The only question is how. But the other side of it, and talk a little bit about this, because, throughout time, how you dress changes. There's different things that come and go. And I see today, because every time I go and speak, I get somebody comments on my suit. And I praise you every single time. Like, because you're the one. I used to like to be, as you remember, I used to be like dressed like a gangster, because when I was a kid, all of my heroes were gangsters, and every gangster I knew wore pinstripe suits.
Yeah,
Right. But
yeah, yeah. I remember.
yeah. And so I forced you into getting me a pinstripe suit, and then you kept shifting me, right? You kept shifting me. You're like, well, what about this? And what about that? And I'm like, I'm never wearing that. Now I find myself wearing the stuff that you suggested. Right. And those things, because the trustworthiness and the quality of the clothes and those kind of things. And we live, I think, in a day and age where, because of Steve Jobs, right? Because of Zuckerberg, right? They're these massive billionaires, that walk around in jeans and tennis shoes and a t-shirt, that now people that I know, when I see them on stage and they're dressing like that, they're not billionaires, right? They just couldn't
Yeah,
afford a custom tailored suit. And I think that says something about their brand, but it also says something about the standards, right? You and I are both godly men. We both love our families very much. Do our best to be great fathers. And there's and businessmen. right? There's a standard that you set for yourself that I think is lacking, and it shows up in the way people dress. I don't know, is that just me being judgmental, or what do you think?
No, I don't think it is. I think it's two types of respect. One, self-respect, and two, respect for the situation that you're in. When
Mm,
you show up and you've made a purposeful effort to get dressed a certain way, it shows that you have respect for the situation. And
mm,
you can say that I'm biased because I sell custom
of
tailored
course.
clothing. I don't
Yeah.
I don't care. But it is a fact that if you show up to a funeral in Bermuda shorts,
Yeah.
there's a reason why you wear black to a funeral.
Right.
Because black says, I am mourning with you,
Mm,
right?
yeah.
I see you and I am mourning with you.
Yeah.
I put black on today to mourn with you.
Mm,
And it's a subconscious signal, but it means the world to the person who's mourning,
yeah.
right? When you show up to a networking event and you're in your sneakers and kicks and um, you know a hoodie, it says I'm too cool for this place, or I don't care enough to put on a sport jacket.
I get
Um,
the I don't it's the I don't care. That's what I get.
yeah,
Because when I'm
yeah,
stepping in front of an audience, yes, I wanna look good, but I also wanna respect them.
right,
We talk about all the time, most small business owners, it's a blue collar kind of a situation, right?
yeah,
And I want and they're why people utilize me in my service is because they're gonna have a white collar exit. And I want to respect that audience. They're like, oh, you showed up to a bunch of plumbers to speak to a bunch of plumbers, and you're in a three-piece suit. Yes, because I respect my audience,
yeah,
and this is the standard that I hold for myself. This is the standard my business holds, and it's the standard I'm going to hold for you if you decide that you utilize somebody that's in my organization. Anything that we're doing, there is a standard, and it starts with me.
yeah. Yeah, and it's also the self-respect. Like you talked about Steve Jobs and Mark Zuckerberg and how billionaires get to dress however they want. Well, yeah, that's right. You're not a billionaire yet,
Yeah,
presumably. And what a great time to be alive, though.
yeah,
Like if you want to set yourself apart,
right.
it's easier today than it's ever been
Yep,
because you put on a nice custom tailored suit or a
right.
jacket or something that's unique and you stand out in a
Yeah,
room full of people who are well qualified
right.
because it looks like that person does things on purpose. He's detail oriented. Um, he likes himself enough to get dressed.
Mhm.
um, I mean, if somebody came and they looked like Grizzly Adams,
Yeah,
and they hadn't shaved in 45 days,
right.
you're not talking to that guy about building an exit strategy,
Yeah,
right?
it's their most
Um,
valuable asset that they have besides their family and besides their relationship to God and their country. The most valuable asset somebody has is their business. And my entire team knows. We got 31 people that work for me. They all know the standard is we're going to treat that as if it was our family's sole source of revenue, and
yeah,
we take it seriously.
yeah. So, I mean, to put a bow on everything, I think it goes back to
Maybe a
respect.
bow
A
tie.
respect, a bow tie, yeah. It goes back to respect for yourself and respect for others and the situation that you find yourself in. I dress a lot of people that make their living from stage,
Yeah.
and a- and to give you an idea of how serious I take this for myself, when I leave the house in the morning, I will purposefully get dressed in a way that I can change my outfit based on who I am going to be in front of that day. So if I'm going
Mm,
to a law office in the morning, I'll be in a three piece
mm,
because that's what I sell to that guy,
right.
right? That's
Yep.
the environment I'm walking into. And then if I go down to Silicon Slopes and I'm talking to a bunch of guys that haven't worn a jacket in 17 years,
Right.
I'm going to dress down to their level, but slightly elevated. So I'm going to
Right.
be in a pair of custom tailored jeans and a nice pair of shoes and a sports jacket that makes a statement, right?
Right.
And so I have to get dressed. I'll often leave the house with three outfits in the car,
Wow.
and I will go to the club and I will change because the message that I send to them is I got dressed today because you were on my schedule.
Right.
and I'm dressing to show you some of the things that you can do for
Mhm.
your wardrobe that might help you.
Yeah.
So I will look through my calendar that day and I will say, how can I be versatile with my wardrobe so that I'm showing respect for, like, I'm not going to walk in to a law office in jeans
Right.
and a nice heavyweight t-shirt and a jacket.
Yeah.
I'm just not going to do it. That's not who I am. And I think um, if you were going to ask me uh, what makes people comfortable around me, because I think that's probably one of my superpowers if I have one,
Yeah.
is we can sit down and talk and become friends in 5 minutes.
Right.
Um, I don't feel like I'm overly intimidating. I feel like I'm kind of like a welcoming listener, and those things are secondary to, they see me first and then they hear me, right?
Yeah.
And if they see me and I look like, that's an easy guy to talk to.
Yeah.
I think that we can sit and have a conversation. And if you want to talk about what makes things happen in exits and in building a business and building strategies and keeping employee uh, happiness high,
Mhm.
um, it's all in those interpersonal relationships and how comfortable they feel around you.
Yeah.
And the visual part of that is just the first thing they see.
Yeah.
And if it's a hurdle that you don't have to overcome that
Yeah.
if you're dressed appropriately for the situation. So, like the tailoring, there's two types of tailoring. There's the part that does this fit, and
Yeah.
then there's the other part, does this fit the
Right.
situation, right?
Yeah. I love that. That's really great. And being approachable and being easy to talk to, again, you met Emily for the first time, just
She's
recently.
great.
And yeah, and
She's
she
great.
she loves you. She loves you. And and then the conversation I go back to, on your podcast, which I highly suggest. There's some great conversations on there, especially for men that are fathers and wanting to elevate their fatherhood and be a better dad and be a better father and for their own family or a better husband. The Gentleman Project is one of them. In fact, it's one of the on my LinkedIn. That's the video that I pinned. Right, if somebody wants to get to know me, right, and understand who I am as a human being, they watch that podcast. And I've had so many compliments because of the conversation that you and I and Corey had, and it was an easy conversation, right? It
Yeah.
was easy. Talk to me a little bit about why and where the Gentleman Project came from.
Oh man, the origin story is pretty cool. So I've got some boys who just became adults. They're 18 now, believe it or not, Jason.
Yeah,
Um,
that's insane.
when they were 5 years old, so about the same time that I was like breaking off from the store and starting Haberdasher, I would spend most of my day on the road, away from the family, building a business. And I came home one night and they said, "Dad, what'd you do today?" And I said, "I went to lunch with a gentleman. I fit a gentleman for a suit." And I just kept using this word gentleman. And one of them looked at me and said, uh, "Dad, what's a gentleman?" And it was one of those questions where you're like, I could have answered it in a way that was, yeah, it's a nice guy with manners that treats people with respect, like just kind of rattled off some, and I honestly don't know how I answered the question the first night, but I remember laying in bed that night and it bothered me that I couldn't answer it in a way that was satisfactory to me as his father. Um, to explain, because that's what I wanted for him in his life, is for him to grow up and be a gentleman. Because I believe it represents the best of us, the
Mm,
best of society, the people that are outward looking, that take care of other people, that solve problems, that make lives better. And so what I decided to do was to create this little curriculum, and I went to them and I said, "Do you want to spend the 10 minutes before you go to bed with me every night talking about what it means to be a gentleman? And I will teach you one of the things that it takes to be a gentleman one by one." And it was like, Jason, it was like a switch that got flipped in my house. And they would sit on the edge of their bunk beds waiting for me to come in and talk to them about values that I wished to pass on to them so that when they were adults, they could make the world a better place. And they bought in so fast and so hard to this idea that the the type of father that I was completely changed. I was like kind of a disciplinarian. Like I'd ask you to do something and you'd question it, and I would just yell louder until you did it
Yeah.
because I'm the dad. Damn it.
Right.
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 That was the
Yep.
type of dad. That was the type of dad I was finding myself to be as a young father, and I didn't like it. Um, and there's if I have regrets in my life, it's that era of my life that I was more like a disciplinarian than I was a loving father that guided in a godly way. And um, so the Gentleman Project is what we named this little 10 minutes before bed. And we started to develop our own little curriculum. And we started to have these conversations that were just like so unique to be having with 5 year olds that I was talking to them about honesty and integrity and the way you treat your mom and your sisters, the way you look outside yourself and serve other people. And I just kind of, I honestly think it was kind of like some divine inspiration because I didn't set out to create anything specific. But I went to erase this little whiteboard with a picture of them on it, and where we had talked about a gentleman does hard things without complaining.
Mm.
And that was the first lesson that I taught them because they were complaining about everything, right? I'm too
Right.
little, it's too hard. And I'm like, if we don't quash that one, you're never going to do anything that's of worth in the world if you stop right as it gets hard.
Mm.
And so I went to erase that and I thought I should write this somewhere important.
Mm.
And so we created these little leather bound journals. And then I thought, we should actually show each other that we have learned this lesson after talking about it for a week or two. And so like we climbed a 10,000-foot mountain after that first one. I said, what could we do to show each other that we're learning these lessons, not just talking about them? And they said, "Well, you've taken us to the top of that mountain on your back before, but we've never walked the whole way ourselves." And I'm
Mm.
like, "Ugh, yeah, because you're little."
Right.
And I have pictures of them walking up that single track trail to the top of Ben Lomond Peak in Ogden, Utah, at 9,712 feet and
Wow.
us standing on top of it. So if you ask my boys today who are 18, what did you do to show that you had learned that a gentleman does hard things without complaining? They would say, we hiked to the top of Ben Lomond Peak. And so what I had inadvertently done is I was having regular conversations that had become a habit in our house.
Mm.
We were talking about things that mattered that then they started to observe and say, hey, I saw grandpa do this. Is that something a gentleman does? So they started to write the curriculum. Third, we wrote it down. Like you talk about goals, right? We're
Mhm.
writing down the thing that we learned about. And then fourth, we're having an experience that shows that we have learned it, and we create a memory together. And now looking at psychology, I'm like, those are the four most effective ways to learn anything, right? You have a conversation with someone you love, you write it down, you do it in a habitual way, and then you make a memory out of it. And that became the Gentleman Project. And as I was out just talking to people who were my customers, like yourself, um, we would always end up talking about family
Yeah.
and how's your kids, how are things going. Most of the time I'm working with people who are building something. They're away from home a lot, and their number one worry was that they're killing it at work and they're losing what's most important to them at home.
Mm.
And so this conversation would come up and I would share it just out of love, like, this changed my family, try this. um, it changed the way I talked, it changed the way I motivated, it changed the way I disciplined. Like, it was so good for me
Yeah.
as a dad. And so I started to share it with people like Corey that we do the podcast with.
Mhm.
And he took it home, started doing the same thing at his house. And he was like, I don't know what this is. This word gentleman just like totally like gets down to the core for my kid. And he's all in.
Are you a business owner running hard, burning out, and still not getting ahead? I'm Jason Sisneros, founder of Built to Exit. I've bought, built, fixed, exited over 24 companies of my own. I've helped hundreds of business owners do the same. If you're listening to this podcast, you probably didn't start your business to be trapped in it. And yet, here you are, overwhelmed, underpaid, drowning in noise from fake gurus and recycled advice. Been there. Built to Exit isn't just another course. It's not a magic bullet, it's a system, a proven blueprint built from real world experience, not theory. We help owners control the 3 things that really matter in business: price, the timing, and the terms of your exit. Whether that means more cash in your pocket now, more freedom starting today, or a full-blown exit strategy that lets you walk away on your own terms, our team knows how to get you there. So if you're done guessing, done with the excuses, and ready to win, visit builttoexit.biz today to schedule your free 15-minute strategy call with a senior advisor. We'll show you exactly where the leaks are in your business and how to fix them, because everybody exits. How you exit is the only thing that really matters. Builttoexit.biz. We play to win. Do you?
And so at any one time, we've had hundreds to thousands of people that have been doing some form of the gentleman project in their home. And
Mhm.
more importantly, it's opened up conversations amongst men about how to be more intentional and present in their kids' lives. And we've always said, like, all the expense, all the effort, all the time that's gone into building the gentleman project uh, in the last 13 years would be worth it if one relationship was changed between one father and one son,
Yeah.
or one father and one daughter.
Yeah.
And if we could save one family from the misery of going through separations, um, then it'd all be worth it.
Yeah.
And I know for a fact uh, that that's been dozens of families. So I'm just like I'm as passionate about this as I am about custom tailored clothing. But it's so nice to see men having conversations about how to show up. And
Yeah.
that was my gentleman project, right? And what would usually happen is I would have an opportunity to hear good ideas from other men that they just don't talk about. They're like, oh
Yeah.
yeah, one of them was I go for walks with my kids on Sunday afternoons, and they know that they have my ear 100%, that there's no distractions, and if they need to talk to me, they can talk to me anytime, but especially on Sunday afternoons when they get their walk with me. I'm like,
Yeah.
that's a gentleman project,
Mm.
right? And that's an idea that's worth sharing amongst men.
Yeah.
Um, and so the gentleman project has just become a way for men to share ideas, and that's what the podcast is. Most of the time we end up talking about how you were raised and the things that are most important to you and how you're passing those on to the next generation. So
Yeah, I love that. And the word gentleman, it's interesting. We live in a day and age, right? And maybe, you know, because I'm getting older, I'm like, these youngsters these days, right? Getting into that kind of
get off
position.
my lawn.
Get off my lawn, darn it. Um, but we had this conversation on your podcast, which was I didn't have strong male role models, right? And mine were violent, and they were going to prison, and they were hurting people, and they were beating my mom, and they, you know what I mean? Like that was the upbringing that I had, and I knew inherently that I wanted to be opposite of that, right?
Yeah,
But I didn't. The concept of gentleman is such a powerful one that can only be transmitted amongst other gentlemen, right? And us men. I know that this is not a sexist statement, but men dealing with men, the more you push them apart, or you try to push them down, or you try to make, masculinity something bad, or you are crushing a strong society, right? And when you don't have us communicating with each other, when there's not a higher standard. I love the standard that your show sets, and that who you are as a person that you set. And as I was moving through my life, and I started having kids, and moving through my life, and I saw people that I greatly admired, and they had a great family, and they had a good business, or one or the other, not always all the above, right? but it was this idea, and now you see a lot of young men being influenced by these testosterone driven, F word. And by the way, like since I became a Christian, I've toned down my swearing. It hasn't stopped. But as you know, when you met me versus now, certainly a lot less F words, right?
I thought about that about 3 minutes ago, and I was like, "There's been no swearing."
Right. Not
And
one.
and and one of the things that I loved most about the podcast is you said, "Hey, when I'm a guest on someone's podcast," and this is situational awareness.
Yeah.
A gentleman always has my if I die and my kids don't mention situational awareness in my obituary or my eulogy,
You'll have
I
failed.
failed. I've
I'll let
failed as
them
a
know.
dad.
I'll let them know.
Oh, they know, because anytime somebody talks about like, oh, they weren't aware of their surroundings, I get the look from across the room from one of my boys, and they're like, situational
Right.
awareness.
Exactly.
But you were situationally aware that, like, when I come into someone else's house, I can change the way I act.
Yep.
Like, I make absolutely no judgments on you if you use coarse language.
Right.
But you knew me and you knew Corey, and so you adapted to the situation that you were in, and I think that that's a hallmark of a gentleman.
Yeah. And it's a standard that I think we need to be, I look at suits as kind of, I want more men, not because it's a status symbol, or not because, but it just is a standard that you set for for your family, for the people you work with, for the people, and of course, if your job doesn't call for it, then don't do it. But I think that that standard needs to be raised. And the gentleman, you're doing it with the Gentleman Project. We're doing it with Built to Exit. I'm building out sort of a the owner syndicate where we have representation for small businesses. And it really does come down to a standard. I never have felt better about myself than when I'm holding myself to a higher standard that delays gratification, that causes me to look inside of myself. Like I said, I stepped into your studio. I said, I'm not going to cuss because I know you both don't, right? It's your house, not my house. And now I figure I'm being invited into other people's houses, podcast stages, other people's businesses, and that type of thing. And I need to be able to set a standard higher than the one that I held for myself, right? With all again, I do still cuss, but it's not like I used to. And I think it was back then, I'm like, I'm going to cuss just because, and you're not going to stop me, kind of a thing. But this idea of being a gentleman, it's not the testosterone driven, in your face, you're fat. If you're, if you don't have $1 million, it's not, none of that is what being a gentleman is, or being a man in general. Being a man is being in service. It's being
Yeah,
a protector. It's being somebody who guards their wife and their children, and guards against the principles that hold a society together. The principles of God and Jesus and the Bible being held up. That's the only way that that standard stays alive and vibrant for us and for the next generation. And so we're
right.
honor bound, right? We're honor bound to hold that standard. And that's where, I mean, again, you and Corey both are just shining examples to me as as two men that I look up to in that arena.
Thanks, I appreciate that. It's very kind of you to say, and makes me want to be a better man because of what you just said. So thank you.
Awesome. I love it. All right. Well, what is something that I didn't ask, or I should have, or, my audience, they're business owners, they're building their business. They're doing exactly what you've been doing your whole life, trying to make a living, put a roof over their family's head. What is a takeaway that you'd like for our audience to take with them for having watched you today?
Uh, I think that that idea of just respecting the situation and respecting yourself.
Mm,
I think a lot of times as business owners, we can kind of get lost in the ideas of all the things that we aren't getting done,
mm,
and we get really hard on ourselves. We look at our numbers, especially this time of year, and you're like, not as good as last year, and I'm a failure. And um, it's just like gratitude. you will find what you look for.
Mm,
And you can be grateful for the smallest thing. And you can also see the smallest successes if you look for them. And that might be in relationships that you built this year that will pay dividends in the future. That could be um, a small change that you made in your health. For me this year, that was going to the gym 6 times a week. And
mm,
I made a commitment to my men's group. I wrote it and I said, I'm going to the gym a minimum of 5 times a week, but it's been so good for me. I'm going six. And um, so for me this year, um, last year was my biggest year ever. And I'm not going to hit that number again
yeah.
this year, um, unless
Well,
you
I
need some
haven't
more
stopped.
suits.
I haven't stopped ordering suits. I have 4 or 5 more. So you but don't say that too early. You might hit that number tomorrow.
But I feel good about what I did this year because there were some things that were off the books
Mm,
that I feel like I just crushed
mm,
this year. And do I have the six pack abs that I had when I was 30? No. But I'm doing what it takes to get there again. And I think just um, seeing those little successes
yeah.
as business owners can kind of keep us going for the next year, right? Because I don't know, I belong to some of these Facebook groups of small business owners, and there's a lot out there right now that just are they're treading water, just trying to stay alive
Yep.
in the current economy and the certain things that if you're selling the wrong products right now, it's a hard time to be in business for yourself, and they're really hard on themselves. And I just want to, like, I don't know, maybe I should become a business coach or something and just like sit down and be like, look at all the things that you've done.
The
Like
minute that you became a
you were
business coach, you would be in the top 1%. All you have to do is just throw that shingle, brother. I can tell you right now.
uh, it's just it's interesting to see. And so you asked the question, what I take away. Just like gratitude, you can be grateful for the smallest things in life. You can be grateful for the sun on your face on a cloudy day. um, you can be grateful for the things that you got accomplished today as a small business owner, and see the good and see the progress that you're making, um, and just give yourself some grace.
I love that, brother. I love that. I love you. I love your family. I am just genuinely am grateful to have you in my life as a friend, as a human being, and as one of the most amazing tailors I've ever seen. I'm just grateful and thank you for taking the time to come and talk with us on the show and give some
Likewise.
wisdom and some ideas. I'm going to ask you to hang around in the green room because we do need to get these next few suits ordered. So give
Hey,
me a second while I close out the show and I'll be right back with you. Okay.
thanks, Jason. I
Cool.
appreciate the opportunity.
You bet, brother. All right. Well, that's it, everybody. Another great conversation. I think the takeaway for me is the word gentleman, that we elevate ourselves, gentlewoman. It's just really comes down to, and I'm thinking more and more about this as I see the world around us through the lens of how can we support, how can we lift up, how can we do better, and it really does come back down to one word, and that is just kindness, right? Kindness, being kind to the people that are around us, being gentle with our spouses, being gentle with our children, being adamant and taking some of the time that we allocate to things that don't have long-term success for us and just maybe replacing that with reading the Bible or reading a good book or praying with your kids, or as Kirk was teaching us, there's a lot of different things. If you go follow the Gentleman's Project, there's lots of different things that you can do as a father to engage with your children and with your spouse at a higher level. It I believe that as we go forward, there's more and more desire for personal interaction with each other. I'm seeing it. I'm speaking all over the place. Next year is already jam packed with speaking engagements in live, right? IRL, in real life, as the kids say. And there's this desperation to get away from fake. AI is going to do what it's going to do. It can be used as a tool for your business. You know, it's going to do what it's going to do, but it is elevating fakeness to a place where it's being identified and rejected, in my opinion. Those things may change. I might be completely wrong, but I do see the humanness in all of us as I travel. And the humanness in us wants to meet other like-minded people, not think the same exact way, but like-hearted, and we want to spend time together. So I'm going to challenge you to elevate your standards, because if you don't, no one will. And I'm also going to challenge you in 2026 to find your tribe. Go get out in real life. Go get around other people that are doing things with their life. Because one of the things that I think is fortune cookie wisdom a lot of times is just look around yourself, around the 5 people that you hang out with most. And I can show you your bank account, your marriage quality, the fatherhood quality, your walk with Christ. I can show you all of that by the 5 people that you hang around the most. And so look to elevate that, and look to add some value to other people, and look to add value back into your life and your learning. That's what I do with Kirk. The people that you've been listening to, you know, on these interviews, these are people that elevate me. They're better in specific areas than I am. And I want to be around them. I want to learn from them. I want to absorb their skill sets. I want to absorb their mindset. I want to absorb how they interact with the world, so that I myself can be a better father, so I can be a better leader, so I can be a better husband, for my wife. So that's what I hope this episode does for you. And I hope you share it out to anybody else. I hope you go to the Gentleman's Project and look up some of those videos. They are excellent, with a bunch of not just Corey and Kirk, but the men that are interviewed on those podcasts are phenomenal human beings. Okay, so that's it for me, and we'll see you. Obviously, we do the show live every 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time every Saturday. I know a bunch of you have been coming, a bunch of you have been sharing the show, a bunch of you have been watching it afterwards. I appreciate you. I'm truly grateful for you being in our lives, and I hope to get to see you on a stage very, very soon, so I can give you a big hug. All right. I'm Jason Sisneros, and for all of us at Built to Exit, thank you for your time and thank you for your trust, and we'll see you on the next episode. Peace.